What happened between Israel and Qatar will fundamentally reshape the balance of power in the Middle East, and by the time you understand the full implications of this geopolitical earthquake, you'll see why America's dominance in the region is hanging by a thread. The cost inflicted by Israel on Qatar was not simply another episode of regional instability. This represents one of the most severe economic and geopolitical shocks that the United States has experienced in decades. All of this unfolded while Donald Trump occupied the White House, creating a crisis that would reverberate across the global stage. Qatar cannot be dismissed as a minor player in this complex geopolitical chess game. The nation hosts the largest American military base in the Persian Gulf, and its vast gas reserves fuel both Europe and Asia. Yet when the strike occurred, Trump remained silent until everything was over, a silence that echoed throughout the Arab world. This deafening quiet raised fundamental questions about American reliability that continue to haunt diplomatic circles today. Can Washington still be trusted? And in the Middle East, such moments of doubt define relationships for generations to come. In reality, this incident extends far beyond Qatar's borders alone. It symbolizes a deteriorating trust between the United States and the broader Arab world that has taken decades to build. This vacuum was immediately filled by Russia, offering weapons, security cooperation, and most importantly, respect for sovereignty. Simultaneously, the BRICS nations ceased to appear as mere economic experimentation and increasingly resembled the foundation of a new global economic system. The dollar's retreat from international transactions became more pronounced as alternative currencies gained momentum worldwide. We are witnessing not merely a diplomatic mistake, but the slow fracturing of American hegemony across multiple spheres of influence. The essential factor is not the attack itself, but Trump's reaction, or rather his complete absence of response during the critical moments. Just months earlier, he had traveled through Gulf capitals, shaking hands with monarchs, smiling for cameras, and promising solid partnerships. He sought to demonstrate that America was reliable, but when Qatar was targeted, this carefully constructed image collapsed instantly. Whether Israel had warned Washington or the White House was caught off guard remains unknown to this day. However, confirmed sources indicate that Trump's phone call did not occur until 20 minutes after the attack had concluded. This delay sparked serious doubts in Arab capitals about American commitment to regional allies. Was Washington complicit in the strike, taken by surprise, or did it simply refuse to protect an ally it had previously called irreplaceable? The stakes involved are immense beyond measure when examining Qatar's true global significance. Qatar is far from being a secondary state in regional or global affairs. With one of the highest GDP per capita in the world, it controls approximately 13% of the world's proven gas reserves. The nation exports more than 80 million tons of liquefied natural gas annually to markets across the globe. This gas keeps Europe afloat after losing Russian supplies and powers Asia, where Japan, South Korea, China, and India depend on long-term contracts. When Qatar faces destabilization, energy markets tremble with immediate and far-reaching consequences. Prices soar to unprecedented levels, supply chains fracture under pressure, and economies from Berlin to Tokyo absorb the economic shockwaves. For Washington, Qatar's role extends even deeper into strategic importance that cannot be overstated. The Al Udeid Air Base represents the largest American installation in the Middle East and serves as the operational center for United States forces. More than 10,000 military personnel are stationed there, directing missions in Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan. What message does America send when a country hosting such a crucial base is struck and the president responds with only a phone call 25 minutes later? In Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, Kuwait, and beyond, leaders are asking themselves a fundamental question about their own security. If Qatar, with its immense wealth and American troops on its soil, can be attacked without adequate defense, what security remains for their own nations? Qatar's influence extends far beyond military installations into the heart of global financial systems. Its sovereign wealth fund manages nearly $500 billion in assets spanning European banks and automotive manufacturers to prestigious real estate in New York and London. If a country so deeply integrated into Western markets can be treated as a mere adjustment variable, what value do American promises truly hold? Trump's delayed response appears even more painful considering his recent attempts to forge personal relationships with Gulf leaders. He had praised Gulf leaders, presented himself as a stability mediator, and promised to strengthen trust across the region. But when the crucial test arrived, Washington failed to deliver on its commitments. This precise gap between grand promises and inaction during crisis has most profoundly marked Arab capitals. Now, even within the United States, concern continues to grow about America's credibility worldwide. For the Arab League, this no longer represents an isolated case but definitive proof that America no longer guarantees protection even for its closest partners. The delayed phone call, absence of immediate reaction, and impression that Israel acts without constraint undermine Washington's role as the security guarantor of the Gulf. The Middle East rarely forgets such episodes of perceived abandonment. Lost trust proves difficult to regain, and when it disappears, other forces quickly move to occupy the vacant space. Russia, China, and the BRICS nations are already positioning themselves strategically in the region. This episode qualifies as a turning point in Middle Eastern geopolitics and global power dynamics. This story extends beyond Qatar alone. It marks the beginning of a broader collapse of American influence throughout the region. Energy flows are shifting toward new partnerships, alliances are weakening under pressure, financial networks seek new support systems, and Washington's rivals are expanding their influence rapidly. For decades, Arab states tolerated American dominance for one single reason that justified their strategic alignment. Washington promised protection in exchange for political and economic cooperation. This understanding formed the foundation of all agreements, arms purchases, and political compromises throughout the region. But at the moment of the Israeli strike against Qatar, the situation had already begun to change dramatically. Many Arab economies had quietly started turning eastward toward new economic partnerships and political alignments. In several countries, trade with China had surpassed commerce with the United States in both volume and strategic importance. Russia was no longer merely a distant power with limited regional influence. It was delivering weapons, signing civilian nuclear agreements, and consolidating its political ties throughout the Middle East. Simultaneously, Gulf monarchies were experimenting with oil sales in Yuan, preparing for a world where the dollar would no longer be the sole option. The strike against Qatar did not create this trend toward economic diversification. It simply accelerated existing processes and transformed latent discontent into open challenge. Russia did not allow this opportunity to slip away without immediate action and strategic positioning. Moscow immediately proposed itself as a credible alternative to American partnership. While Washington hesitated and delayed responses, the Kremlin addressed regional leaders directly with concrete offers. Russia offered security guarantees, intelligence sharing, and most importantly, promised non-interference in domestic affairs. This was exactly what Arab leaders expected but had never heard from Trump's administration during critical moments. Even on the diplomatic front, Moscow acted with remarkable speed and decisiveness. The foreign minister firmly condemned the strike in clear terms that contrasted sharply with American silence. The contrast was evident to every observer, and regional leaders took careful note of this difference. They understand that Russia can be tough in negotiations, but they appreciate its consistency in honoring commitments once made. In a region where broken promises are passed down from generation to generation, this reliability counts particularly significantly. The United Arab Emirates have expanded their Russian arms purchases beyond previous levels of cooperation. Egypt has signed major energy contracts with Moscow that reshape regional supply chains. Saudi Arabia openly coordinates its oil policy with Russia through OPEC+ mechanisms and joint strategic planning. The anger provoked by the Qatar incident pushed even more countries to move closer to Moscow, believing it accorded them the respect that Washington had withdrawn. The primary danger is that Russia no longer merely competes for influence but increasingly assumes the role of security guarantor for the Persian Gulf. When this perception becomes established in regional consciousness, history shows it becomes almost impossible to reverse. By refusing to act during the attack against Qatar, Trump only reinforced this dangerous impression of American weakness. The consequences are already visible across multiple spheres, and Washington is paying an increasingly heavy price. Oil markets are climbing to new heights. Imported energy becomes more expensive for American consumers. Defense contracts that had routinely gone to American companies for decades are now heading eastward toward Russian and Chinese suppliers. Simultaneously, demand for dollars in global trade continues to diminish as alternative currencies gain acceptance. More and more countries are attempting to settle their energy transactions in other currencies, creating real costs for the American economy. This transformation is unfolding faster than Washington can effectively react to changing circumstances. For Arab countries, the shock of the strike against Qatar will not disappear anytime soon from collective memory. This nation suffered an attack while hosting the largest American military base in the region on its territory. Qatar possesses real leverage and pressure points in global energy markets. It controls nearly a quarter of global liquefied natural gas supplies, and its ties with Russia and China strengthen year after year. In New York, Qatari representatives arrived with strong cards in their diplomatic hand during negotiations. Trump had only empty promises and delayed reactions to offer in return. If he fails to do what Arab leaders expect and hold Israel accountable for its actions, his words will be perceived as completely insignificant in future negotiations. All signs indicate he will not take this crucial step, which means American influence in the Middle East hangs by the thinnest of threads. This story remains far from concluded, with ongoing implications for global stability. The meetings, behind-the-scenes negotiations, evolving energy agreements, and shifting alliances are still in constant motion. The consequences could reshape world politics for years to come, fundamentally altering the balance of global power. The question now is whether America can recover from this strategic miscalculation, or if we are witnessing the beginning of a new world order.